Hello and welcome to another episode of Taking Stock. I'm your host, Kalila Reynolds, and it's my pleasure to be back here with you another week. I missed you guys last week. I was traveling. You know, I had some misfortune in the family. My grandfather passed away. Yeah, very sad and very unfortunate, but you know, he was 92 years old. So rest in peace, Constantine Enriquez Sr. My loving grandpa, we all miss you a whole lot. But I'm back now and time to do the show. So what is everybody up to this evening? Let me know in the comments where you're joining us from. Let me know in the chat. I see people here from far, far away, as usual, Arizona in the house and all over the world, because, you know, that's how we do. I want to remind you as well to hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Also, last night, we had Ask Mike. So as soon as this is done, if you didn't get a chance to watch it yet, tune in to Ask Mike right here on the platform. Now, here's a look at what's coming up in tonight's show, followed by what's hot in business. And of course, come on, let's get this money.
Residents of College Green in Hope Pasture, St. Andrew, are relieved after winning a lawsuit against an Airbnb host for what has been described as nuisance. Was the ruling justified? And what does this mean for Airbnb hosts and possible regulations in the future? We'll discuss. And the analysts weigh in on the latest market developments. As the Federal Reserve further examines its interest rate policy, what kind of geopolitical issues should be considered? And the Carib Cement Company 9 months ended September 30, 2023 results are out. How did they perform? We'll discuss. But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart. Jamaica was hit by a 5.6 magnitude earthquake on Monday morning. The epicenter of the quake was located just south of Buff Bay, Portland. According to Prime Minister Holness, preliminary assessments suggest that there has not been any significant damage. However, social media users have been sharing videos of cracked buildings, roadways, and schools. There have been no deaths confirmed from the quake so far. The government has not revealed an estimated cost for damage repairs. 138 Student Living has announced the basis of allotment for its recent additional public offer. The company said that all applicants in both the reserved and general pools will receive 100% of the shares they purchased. The allotment follows news that the company's APO was undersubscribed. The company's chairman, Ian Prasad, told the Jamaica Observer that the subscriptions were significantly below their original expectations. Ruby's Energy Jamaica says construction on a new service station by the Portmore Toll Plaza will begin early next year. According to the company, the new station is part of plans to expand its service network across the island. Ruby's Jamaica CEO Michelle Malatino said the company intends to open 2 more additional service stations by 2025. The cost for building the latest Portmore station hasn't been disclosed yet, but Ruby's newest Montego Bay station cost 200 million Jamaican dollars to construct. The government of Guyana says the country has made another significant oil discovery. Guyana's Ministry of National Resources said that the discovery is the 4th offshore find this year and brings the total number of discoveries since 2015 to 46. More than 11 billion barrels of recoverable oil have been found since the exploration process began. The discovery comes as the U.S.'s second largest oil company, Chevron, is finalizing a deal to acquire oil exploration company Hess. Hess is one of the 3 companies in charge of the oil exploration program in Guyana. The deal will bring Chevron in direct competition with ExxonMobil, which has the largest stake in Guyana's oil exploration. What's Hot was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
Quick reminder, the sale for money marketing ends today. Get 40% off my newest premium course inside the Money Mission. Learn strategies to create amazing content that will stop people from scrolling and actually pay attention to you. Build a loyal audience excited to share your content and make it go viral. Make money on social media and run your platform like a business. Join me live inside Money Mission starting Monday, November 6th for this game-changing course, Money Marketing. And remember, the sale ends tonight. Comment marketing below and I'll send you the link for 40% off. Go to the link in my bio and tap Money Marketing for 40% off. Let's get this money.
This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, insurance made easy.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Let us see who is on and where you're joining us from. Let's go to our comments. Who we have? Dwight is joining us from Havendale. Jermaine is all the way in China. What time is it there, Jermaine? Nana Sense checking in from far, far away. Kish in London. Philly checking in. That's Roger. Arizona in the house. That's Antoinette as usual. Lithium Lily is outside. Humble Boss is in the grill. Christine is in Kingston 19. Ash is in Malines on Malines Road. Drax Hall, Francine, big up yourself, Francine. We have Taylor in St. Thomas or St. Thomas native. If you're there right now, Taylor, how are things? I know you guys were near to the epicenter. I saw some of the worst damage from the earthquake in St. Thomas and Portland. Then we have QB Quillholic there in Cayman. So hello and good evening. Let's get into our discussion this evening because the courts have issued a historic ruling. Residents of College Green in Hope Pastures are relieved after winning case against an Airbnb host for what was described as a nuisance. So was the ruling justified? And what does this mean for Airbnb hosts and possible regulations in the future? I'm joined now by Gabrielle Grant Gilpin Hudson. She's an attorney at law and also first vice president of the Realtors Association of Jamaica. And we also have an Airbnb operator in New Kingston, Sandra Samuels. Hi, Gabrielle, and hi, Sandra.
Hello, good evening.
Great to have you on. So I want to start with Gabrielle. Can you summarize what exactly happened? What did the court declare? You're muted, Gabrielle. Still muted.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So sorry about that. Okay. So the written judgment is not available for review yet. So let me put that out there. But based on what has been published, essentially what happened was a particular homeowners association, so not a strata, had an owner in their midst that was operating an Airbnb. They had a situation where they had indicated that they were going to agree to not have Airbnbs operate in that community. There was some back and forth in terms of the owner continuing to operate, and essentially the court has ruled in the homeowners association's favor that the person must immediately stop operating their Airbnb. Part of that discussion had to do with the restrictive covenants on the title, which is a new spicy part of the law on the issue. And that's what's making it very topical. And, I think we'll have a very good discussion on that tonight.
Explain what restricted covenants mean and what this particular one said.
Sure. So restrictive covenants are things that are on a certificate of title that speak to what you can and cannot do with the land. And they typically come from how the land was subdivided. So you'll find that when somebody sets up a development, they can either come from the parish council or they can be covenants that this person decides to put on the titles because they think it will allow for the smoother operation of the development. And these will be placed on all of the titles inside of that development and bind the landowners and their successors in title. So this development had a particular covenant on the titles, which said that the properties were to be used for residential purposes only, not to carry on any trade or business. And so essentially what the ruling spoke about was that means that Airbnb is not residential purposes and it is a business because you're having an intention to not stay in the property long term and have it as a place of abode, but rather, you're there for a short period of time and the person that's operating it is operating a business in that way.
Very, very interesting. And I wonder, so what position is your association how are you responding to this? What's your position?
Right. So we always promote education amongst our members and education amongst the public. Before buying into somewhere, you want to be cognizant of what's on the title and if there are any rules or regulations governing that community. We believe that communities need to be free to essentially regulate themselves. And you should be able to know what you're buying into, because we do see that some persons, if it is that you choose to live in a community where you prefer to not have these kind of operations going on, then that should be your choice. Whereas other persons, if they want to carry on a business like this, they should be able to as well.
You know, it's interesting. So I want to bring in Sandra. Sandra, you operate an Airbnb in New Kingston. And so the residents of College Green won this case partly on the basis of that restrictive covenant, being that it's only supposed to be residential, no business operations. Now, I wonder if other challenges may come to say that, well, you're in a residentially zoned area. Even though there's no restrictive covenant, this area is zoned by the parish council or whoever does the zoning laws. This area is zoned for residential use. I wonder if any challenge could come based on that. But I was putting that out there. First of all, what is your position, Sandra?
All right. First of all, I am a law-abiding citizen. So if it is that the complex says I cannot operate here, then that is, well, as you said before, or Gabriel said, that the homeowners association should be able to make an agreement if it was thrown out and it was not accepted. Then of course I'm not into breaking any laws. However, I have a few questions that I really, in my interview on Nationwide, I was not so sure that this was indeed an Airbnb property. And I say that to say, because everything is lumped into Airbnb. We have several different platforms operating in Jamaica. That's the first thing. You have HomeAway, you have Expedia, you have Vrbo, and you have Airbnb. Now, even if the person is on the platform, that does not mean that the person is renting through the platform. So let us get that clear. Short-term rental is not new to Jamaica. I mean, that's why it's so shocking to me, this sudden outburst and this sudden, it's just that it has increased, because I'm sure many realtors have done short-term rentals to persons who are visiting Jamaica for long periods of time, whether it's to do medical a medical procedure or to take care of an old parent, or several different reasons. They're here for work. They're here doing several different things. So they may rent for a month, 2 months. This particular incident, and that's what what I don't like is nobody is looking at the obvious. It is clear to me that this person, the owner of that property, is well, first of all, they don't care. So that person is not a business person. That person is a hustler. And it is upsetting, because first of all, Airbnb has put so much work into ensuring that both parties are covered, meaning there are rules and regulations everywhere you turn. I mean, you're nervous to rent people your place because they can report you in a minute. So for it to have gone on for so long, and for nothing to have been done, he didn't do anything, or he or she, I don't know who the owners are, they didn't do anything with regards to managing their property. And that is what has now put Airbnb into a tailspin, which is unfair, because short-term rental is not new to Jamaica. It's not. I'm a businesswoman outside of this. I'm a businesswoman for 30 years come next year. And business is business. And I mean, if persons don't operate in a particular way in another sector of business, they're handled. they're either penalized or the business is closed down. So, I know some questions going to come up that I want to address, but
so Sandra, regardless of the platform though, whether they're using Airbnb or a different platform or doing it on their own through Facebook, the premise remains the same.
The first thing I said to you is that if that is the case and they were advised that it's not supposed to happen here, then I am not with that person. If you are going against the covenant or going against the bylaws, because in our situation where I am, it was never addressed. It wasn't addressed, none at all. So in the strata committee, we agreed on certain rules and regulations governing that. And the truth is, we have the right to overturn, to stop, to do whatever if it is out of hand. So that is the challenge. Everybody is just on this Airbnb, but that's not the point. The point is it could be a long-term resident that is offering that same kind of drama. Because I live where I live. I went where I moved to, right? The first week I got here, and it's an owner. I had to be calling security because there was a big brawl in the yard. I've never seen that where I lived before. And I mean Upper St. Andrew. You understand what I'm saying? And that's an owner. So we are making a big deal about short-term rental, but that could be an owner doing the same exact thing. So we're missing the point. Laws governing a complex should be right across the board, not the short-term rentals. Not the short-term rentals. It's almost as if Airbnb is being targeted. I don't speak on behalf of Airbnb.
Are you trying to make the point that long-term rentals are also a business?
Isn't it? Many people have numerous homes and they rent it for profit. Isn't that so? Long-term rental is also a business because many persons have several different homes that they rent out to earn money.
Right.
So it's not about it's not, and you could be renting to anybody. And so that is my challenge with the whole situation. Rules are rules, long-term, short-term. Rules are rules. And I don't understand why whether it is Airbnb owner or VRB owner would allow. First of all, something is wrong with the whole thing. What is the likelihood? Think about it, Kalila. You have been around for a while, just like myself. I'm 60 next year. What is the likelihood of one person having sequential, numerous bad tenants? Them not related. Them don't come from the same place. That story just don't sound right to me. It's just, it has to be the owner. It's the owner.
It is strange. I did find that strange that like almost all the tenants that come in there are a nuisance, something wrong with all of them. So, right, so I want to come back to Gabrielle. So Gabrielle, I raised the issue earlier about whether or not you can operate a business in a residential area, regardless of covenant, because the city and the towns have zoning laws. Are there any regulations that stipulate, what is allowed and what isn't allowed, or is this a gray area still if Airbnb is to be considered a business?
Yeah, so it's definitely still somewhat of a gray area, but I would dare to say that this case has kind of pushed it over the edge a little bit. So this is not the first case where they've said that, okay, residential purposes, once you're renting it out on a short-term basis, that takes you outside the scope of residential purposes. But the question is whether or not now that flies in the face of zoning, and the person responsible for enforcing a misuse of zoning would really be the various municipal corporations. So it remains to be seen whether or not, for example, they will now be getting strict and saying, okay, well, in certain residentially zoned areas, you can't do this. But generally speaking, for a development to happen in the first place, that municipal corporation has a say in what covenants go on that title. So that is why, for example, some covenants in residential communities will say residential purposes only. And then also you have areas in Jamaica that are dual zoned. So you will have places that are zoned residential and resorts. And in a case like that, then you wouldn't necessarily have covenants that mandate that the property needs to be used for residential purposes only. So I think it comes back down to, if you're buying a property for Airbnb, doing your research, and checking to see these things and making sure that you're getting the proper advice, because it's going to start getting more technical and you're going to find people reaching for the rules more to make sure that disputes around the situation are avoided, or they can enforce their rights, as the case may be.
So Sandra, are there any rules or guidelines that regulate this industry, or that say how short-term rental operators are supposed to operate?
I really appreciate it. Not that I know of, but persons on the platform, we are guided by rules and regulations. When I say rules and regulations, I don't mean 2 rules. I mean really, excuse me, really a number of rules that you have to meet in order to be on the platform. Also, the guest who is staying by your apartment will also have to follow certain guidelines. I have rules for my apartment. My apartment is non-smoking. My apartment is no pets. My apartment is several different things. If they fail to follow, that's why I don't understand. If these people were so disruptive, all the owner had to do was to pick up the phone and call Airbnb. Airbnb would have a conversation with this person, and if they don't comply, they're asked to leave immediately. If they don't leave immediately, you call the police, and they are refunded, and you get back your place. Now, for it to have gone on for so long tells me that something is off. Yes, I understand based on what I heard on the interview with Cliff Hughes that it's an absentee owner, but it doesn't matter because most absentee owners have a manager that that manages the property for them. However, you have some people who cheap it out and they only have the person who's cleaning the apartment doing a handover, and they don't manage the goings and comings of their guests. And because of that, that is why we are where we are.
So we have some comments in the comments section that I want to put to you, Sandra. And this one comes from T876, who says that you're ignoring the obvious and well-documented issues with short-term rentals. They're a nuisance, especially in gated communities. The safety and security issue cannot be overemphasized. And when we have Nicole adding, every day you wake up to strange people just walking in your corridor. In some of these complexes, most of the properties are short-term, which cannot be good for local residents. How do you respond to those concerns?
No, I hear what they're saying. This is not new to, first of all, Jamaica is not the only place that has Airbnbs. So what are they doing in the rest of the world? That's what we need to look at, first of all. This is not something that's going to go away, I would think. This is something that is going to grow as persons need spaces to, when they're coming out for their family. Not everybody can afford a hotel to put 4 people because they would have to pay individually. They rent a home, and these are decent people. Not all are decent, and I'm not going to say that all are decent because I've had 1 or 2, but I handled it quickly and sorted it out. I am not saying that persons are to break rules. There are apartments out there that are targeted solely for Airbnb, and there are some complexes that allow Airbnb. Now, just like, and I also said that in my interview, I have been, for me to move from where I was, it took me almost a year because I couldn't find somewhere to move with my dog, a little teacup dog. You know why? Because persons do not clean up after their dogs. And so persons have put a blanket, a broad brush across the board, no pets. Now, are we living in a civilized society or what? I mean, pets are a part of a family. So, I mean, you're going to tell me that I can't have a pet because what? Persons don't pick up after their dogs, so I have to be penalized. It's the same thing. things have to be regularized. That's what I'm saying. Things have to be regularized. Business is business. If it's a business, then we have to sit down and see what works for both parties, because it's not going to go away. If you try and shut it down, trust me, people are going to go underground. Maybe not me, because I can't take stress. I don't do stress, right? So I would rather give it up than to go on any stress. However, it's not going to go away. So we have to find a way to find out what is best for both parties. And as I said before, it boils down to the owner of the property. Not all persons are business persons. Not all people follow the law, rules, and regulations. And that is what is causing the problem, like any other business. Like any other business. I'm not ignoring it. I'm just saying it's the way forward. It's worldwide. What is happening worldwide?
I do wonder though, Sandra, about people, especially let's say you invest in purchasing a property in a gated community specifically for the security reason, because you feel more secure when you are in a gated community. But then Airbnb comes in, your neighbor is renting out their property to God knows who. Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose?
All right. So where I live, where my Airbnb is, I own there from 1991. Persons were living there long term. There was a resident living there for over 3 years that was running a passport racket out of the complex. They were not short term. Many persons buy apartments, especially in certain areas, for investment purposes only. Many don't live there. Many owners don't live in the complex. And that is what, so we have a mixture of persons who are buying their first home to live and to have peace of mind. And then you have another set of people who are buying for investment. You say, let's make that money. That is what is going on. And I'm saying to you, what is happening is that it has to be regularized or zone, or whatever you want to call it, zoned, or something has to be done. But the truth is, this is worldwide. Why is Jamaica so resistant, or why is Jamaica so different? Where it is that we're not following the laws that govern elsewhere. We need to look into that.
So, Gabrielle, you just heard Sandra say that she believes there does need to be some sort of regularization. Do you agree with that, that something is needed?
So I definitely think that. So first of all, as it relates to different communities, I think every community needs, if their rules are silent on the issue, they need to come to a position and say, are we for it? Are we against it? And decide and take the steps necessary to do that. If you are allowing it, it's helpful to have a framework. So for example, certain communities have procedures where the owners operating them are registered. They have requirements about keeping copies of IDs for people, letting them know when people are coming. Sometimes you have to pay additional things for additional security services, things like that. So that is on a community to community level. And then we have, the national level. We've heard the Minister of Tourism speak about potentially regulating the sector. And especially as it relates to destination assurance, certainly minimum best practices or guidelines, I think that would be welcomed. You knowing, okay, if I'm operating an Airbnb, these are the minimum standards, or a short-term rental, let me not broad brush it. These are the minimum standards that I need to adhere to. Do you have a first aid kit? Are you keeping the place to a certain level of cleanliness, sanitation issues, those kind of things? Do you need a license? What's that process going to be like? Or is it something where you just register? I think those questions are questions that we need to answer, because to Sandra's point, yes, there are other places that have laws and regulations on the issue, but they're not consistent. We've seen a lot of different places doing a lot of different things, going from a New York that is saying, no, we don't want this at all, because there are other considerations. What does it do to your housing market, to your rental rates? And then other jurisdictions saying, well, we'll allow it, but we'll maybe say we'll limit the amount of operators in a certain area. So there's a cap on it. Or we might say, okay, well, you can do it in these areas, or you can do it under these circumstances. So we need to decide as a matter of policy, what do we think will work best here? And that's going to take some time. And I'm hoping some consultation with the various stakeholders in the industry before we make a firm decision one way or the other.
So I put some of these questions to Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago. I want us to play that clip, and then I'll get your reactions. That sounds like you're saying you want to tax it.
No, not at all. And I think we wanted to get, and there's something I needed to say on this, because to create a fiscal arrangement that embraces all does not necessarily mean a taxation policy. The Airbnb, for example, on their platform, has their own method of working out how they can make the contribution to the countries that they have business. And we have been talking, just as they've done to New York and other places where they've been able on their platform. So it doesn't become a burden directly on the Airbnb.
When you said they have been in touch with you, you mean Airbnb? Who's been in touch with you?
Airbnb. I mean, they
about what? What is
about how to enable an arrangement with us that makes a contribution to the economy outside of the accommodation subsectors.
And how are they suggesting that be done? How would you want
it is done on the platform itself, long before the visitor comes here. So
how?
The Airbnb owner, let's call it that, for a better phrase, wouldn't have to remit $1. All that is tied into the package that gets there. The customer pays all of that before they come.
So Airbnb gives the Jamaican government a percentage or a fee?
This is the kind of thinking, because that's what they do in many, many countries.
So is that what they do with Jamaica? They give the Jamaican government
at the moment, there's no such arrangement. So this is what we're looking at as a possibility.
What do you make of that, Sandra?
Business is business. Been in business for 30 years. I pay taxes, right? So if right now, I would say like the last 2 years, the last 2 years, they changed up how you log on online. You have to upload your ID. Well, no, that was from before, but they had changed some levels of authentication about, and they prompt you. This is how do you need to pay taxes in your country? Rah 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 rah. As I said, Airbnb has a structure in place. So what he's saying is not very difficult to do. What he's suggesting is that he will take it upfront, or Airbnb will take it upfront from the guest and give it over to the Jamaican government, which is not a bad idea. I mean, the thing is, you have to pay the piper. The only thing I'm sure is debt and taxes. So the thing is, you have to do what you have to do. Are you running a business or are you running a hustle? You have to make up your mind. But the truth is, what I don't want is for like certain other things that small people in there trying to make life, trying to enrich themselves, trying to step up. When it's regularized, it's only the big man or the big woman can afford to have it done. That's what I don't want. And I'm sure that is why the fear of being regularized is in the sector, because you're doing something and then all of a sudden it is at a particular level that you can't even reach. So I am saying, if it's a business, some level of law, and because people clearly have shown that they cannot be left on their own to manage communal living, to manage laws, to manage all of these things. There has to be something in writing, just like everything else. The reason why I have everything in print, in businesses, in schools, in everywhere, is because there's somebody or a group of people who flouted the law. So they have to put things in place. And the airport, going through the airport, we never used to have to take off our shoes, Kalila. We never have to
Until
do
9/11.
exactly.
When something happens, that's when they come up with all the new regulations.
Knee-jerk reaction, which I'm kind of over it. The knee-jerk reaction. Why are you going to wait until something happens? And this is when I'm looking at this situation. And this is so this happened, so they're going to do this and they're going to do that. No, this is on that owner. No, I know many Airbnb owners, and I don't know of anything like that where you have sequential guests who urinating outside, not taking out the garbage, carrying on in a way that to me is unreal. What is the likelihood of that? So it speaks directly to the owner, which the tenants, the Citizens Association should have addressed his ownership of his, and that's why you can't get into certain complexes.
Right.
In Upper
So
St. Anthony.
let me bring Gabrielle back in. So Gabrielle, it sounds like we're all agreed that there should be some type of regulation before things get out of hand. Should the Realtors Association play any role in that?
So definitely we open ourselves to the government for stakeholder consultation sessions on issues like this. So, we have given our input on proposed legislation in the past, and if the government chooses to consult us, we'll definitely be here to give them our input. But I definitely agree. The minister spoke about the taxes, but that's one small part of what you're going to be doing with the sector. What about everything else? So it's one thing to collect a tax. What are you going to use that tax to do? Are you using that tax for enforcement, for monitoring, for licensing processes? So there's so much more that we're left here wondering, what direction are we going to go in? But I agree with Sandra that I really hope that the direction we choose will not choke out some of the smaller operators, because persons have been able to increase their property values and make very good living off of short-term rentals and other add-on services. And so it would be a shame to exclude those persons from the opportunity to operate in the tourism sector.
Through you.
Quickly, Sandra.
Yes, I would like to ask Gabriella, what I know the real estate operators, they rent like 3 months at a time, 6 months at a time. What has been happening with that short-term rental?
So there are realtors who do carry out short-term rental services. The thing about it though is that right now short-term rentals sit in a very gray area. So realtors, if you're a realtor and you rent properties or you sell properties, you have to go through a licensing process through the real estate board. If you're a property manager, you have to go through a licensing process through the real estate board. What we're seeing is that as far as short-term rentals are concerned, there is no legislation that directly applies to somebody, having to have a certain skill set or knowledge framework or training or any sort of thing to be able to manage a property or host a property for short-term rentals. And so there's a bit of a gray area there. Some real estate agents do it, but some everyday people do it. There's no legislation governing that right now.
Definitely a lot of issues to be examined and looked into. Thank you very much, Gabrielle. Thank you, Sandra, for joining us for this very important conversation. Time now for our poll question for this evening. And I see a lot of comments in the chat, lots of opinions, and opinions are very well divided. So here is our poll question. Should Airbnb be banned in certain areas? Yes, they're a nuisance to neighbors. No, homeowners can do what they want with their homes. No, but tenants should be respectful. Or other, leave a comment. And you can take that poll on the community tab of our YouTube channel or over on Twitter. Before we go to the break, let me read a few of your comments on the issue as well. James says, after I struggle to build my house and want to rent it here in the grill, me must share my profit with the GOJ. You're mad? Mr. Squeaky says the developments can look into creating an Airbnb community from scratch. But then that kind of blurs the lines between, so if you have a whole community, how is that different from having villas, like hospitality versus Airbnb? It kind of starts getting blurry now. If you have designated areas just for that, then it's basically a hotel, isn't it? Marlene says it must be regulated. It's too chaka no. We have Lithium says if Airbnb is a business, is requiring operations to pay income tax not justifiable? Lots more comments as well. You can take our poll in community tab on YouTube or on Twitter. But first, yesterday, we had 5 people who were chosen to speak with billionaire Michael Lee Chin. And that was on YouTube, so you can watch the full thing. But here's a short clip of what you may have missed.
How soon should I try to go and market to get new customers, new clients, and balance the amount of support that I have in-house, right? Because the fear is, if it is that I'm going out and I'm winning the business and I'm not able to support properly, that could reflect negatively on the reputation of the company, right? So what is the balance there?
So you should always be talking to your customers, because your customers' pain point will provide guidance to what you should be doing with your technology to make sure that their pain points are minimized. So you should always be talking to customers. Okay. Because again, it will guide you articulately as to how you should finesse your product. What you don't want to do is sit in your ivory tower and think this is what clients want, customers want, and you try to contort them to your product. It's not a long-term sustainable proposition.
That question coming from Nicholas Samuels, who's one of our premium members inside the Money Mission community. Go to moneymission.mn.co to see what's coming up. We have our money marketing course coming up next week, Monday, and all through November, so that you can be prepared for the holiday season to make those holiday sales utilizing social media, and a lot more coming up as well. And when you watch Ask Mike, I highly recommend that you watch to the end, or even if you just scroll to the end. Michael Lee Chin, at the very end, the very last question, he addressed that age-old issue of work-life balance, and he had an interesting take on it. So make sure you watch the last question in Ask Mike last evening. Right now, we're going to go to the break. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Up next, we've got your market recap, and the analysts are standing by.
This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, insurance made easy.
Hey moneymakers, join the KRM fam with our official merch. Get it now at KalilaReynolds.com. Let's get this money.
The JSE Combined Index lost almost 12,000 points, or 3.5% last week. 121 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week ending Friday, October 6, 2023. 39 made gains, 73 lost value, and 9 stayed the same. 97 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, valued at $540 million. Trans-Jamaican Highway was last week's most traded stock. It took up 16% of market volume with 16 million shares trading. The stock gained 16 cents to open Monday at $2.90. Carreras traded at the second highest. The stock gained 4 cents to open this week at $8.08. And One Great Studio rounded out last week's most traded with 9 million shares changing hands. The stock lost 4 cents to open Monday at $1.05. Now let's see who had the biggest gains for the week. ISP Finance was the market's biggest gainer. The stock was up 29% to open Monday at $44. Main Event had the second biggest gain last week. The stock was up 21%, closing the week at $15.99. And JMMB Group 5.75% FRUSD CR preference shares was up 16% to open the week at $2.17 US. On the losing side now, Paramount Trading was the week's biggest loser. The stock lost 43 cents to open Monday at $1.56. Caribbean Assurance Brokers was the week's second biggest loser, opening the new week at $2.52. And 1 through 8 Student Living Variable Preference was down almost 19%, closing last week at $85. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index was mostly stable last week. National Enterprises was the most traded stock. The stock's price remained unchanged to open this week at $3.55 TT. Endeavor Holdings was the biggest gain of the week. The stock was up 15% to start the week at $14.95 TT. And on the losing side, Ansa Merchant Bank fell almost 4% to open Monday at $42.63 TT. Over in the US, the Dow Jones was mostly stable last week, while the S&P 500 was up 0.5% and the Nasdaq gained almost 2%. At the pumps, gas prices fell $3.06 last week, while regular diesel prices rose 1 cent and low sulfur diesel rose 82 cents. In foreign exchange, it took an average $155.48 Jamaican to purchase $1 last Friday. That's the same as the week before. Meanwhile, it took an average $114.60 Jamaican to purchase $1 Canadian. 1 British pound cost on average $190.25 Jamaican. And you could buy €1 for $167.78 Jamaican on average. Finally, on the crypto markets, Bitcoin prices fell 1% over the past 5 days, trading at $27,508 US on Monday, while Ethereum was down 3%, trading at $1,594 US on Monday. This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, is brought to you by Jamaican National Group. We'll help you find a way. And Profit Jumpstarter. Disclaimer. This is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
Welcome back. And just before we introduce our analyst panel, let me take a few more comments because there are many. Raindrop says some returning residents causing these stuff. Some color prejudice people have friends who do have Airbnb in those places. And when we are there, them bad minds subtle. Jaja. Kareem says, stupid ban. Leave it to the Jamaican government to bar progressive moves. I think they're willfully trying to gatekeep wealth. I think he commented that before he realized that it was just this one particular location. It's not a blanket ban against short-term rentals. This person, kind of named that. Let me skip that one. Kish says, wasn't aware that the covenant could be placed on the title. And we have Jermaine says, I totally agree. Long-term rental is a business. Regulation should be across the board. Airbnb is targeted. And Francine says, that's what I'm saying. What's the true story with the renter, or is it the type of guests that is the problem? All right, so we have a few other issues to discuss this evening. Let me introduce our panel. It's time for the analyst. I'm joined by senior trader at JMMB, Andre Reed, and business writer at the Jamaica Observer, David Rose. Hello, gentlemen. Where's David? Andre, you're muted.
Hi, sorry.
There you are.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay, good. So, all right. So, Andre, let's start with you. I don't know where David is, but you're looking at some of the geopolitical issues going on right now, because in the United States, the Federal Reserve is looking at further changes to its interest rate policy. What is going on? Break that down for us in common language.
All right. So, it's not new to us that there's always been tensions between countries, whether it stems from religious or other ideologies, right? We've moved from just war of words to actual military confrontation, and we've seen where the Russia situation with Ukraine actually escalated to a level that most persons wouldn't necessarily have budgeted for, and that has still been dragged on with no immediate end in sight. As if that wasn't enough, we now have Israel and Palestine. Another strain that, if it does escalate, it could spill over to involve other Middle Eastern countries. Remember too that
Andre, we're having serious difficulty hearing you. Like, your audio is really choppy, and it's giving me some trouble to try to figure out what you're saying. I don't know what device you're using to speak. Are you connected to via Bluetooth or something?
Actually, no.
So this is just a direct connection. You're on a laptop?
I am on my laptop, right?
Oh boy, so it seems like there's nothing we can do. So we're gonna have to try struggle. David, where you at? Well, I'll bring you in too. I don't see where David is. But go ahead. Hopefully we can try and make out what you're saying. And if not, then I can try to interpret.
Sorry about that. Any better now?
It sounds the same.
Oh dear. All right, let me just.
No, we're not hearing you at all.
No, I was muted. Sorry. Any better now?
Much better. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My sincere apologies. All right. So I can start over, right? Is
yes.
That right? So I'm saying that the global landscape has changed in recent years. Geopolitically, we've moved from just words to actual military confrontation. I mentioned that the Russia-Ukraine situation, most persons would not have bet on the situation escalating to the level that it actually is now, and that really hasn't shown any signs of letting up. We have added to the pile, the Israel-Palestine situation, which if you've heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu, he's up the ante and saying a lot of strong words that whatever your personal perspective is, it's I don't necessarily want to get into all of that, but we still also have the China-Taiwan situation that, I mean, it has kind of taken a back seat to all of what I've mentioned earlier, but it is still there, and it's something that we should be monitoring, right? Now, I started off on a somewhat negative tone, but uncertainties have always existed. Volatility has always been constant, despite bouts of stability. And the truth is that sometimes volatility presents some of the biggest opportunities. The issue, however, is always getting it right. Now, that's what most persons struggle with, right? Your best trader will tell you that you won't always get it right. The issue is trying to get it right more than you actually get it wrong. Now, if you look at the Russia-Ukraine situation, that meant higher costs for grains. The sanctions also ensured that there were higher oil prices. We have a similar situation with Israel and Palestine. Pretty much, it threatens too that if other Middle Eastern countries and somewhat the West too getting involved, it may mean that oil price could actually head towards the upside even further than it already is right now. Now, central banks in the last at least year have been on tightening policies. That started from the inflation. The inflation issue really came out of the supply constraints that was from COVID, right? We've seen north of 500 basis points in terms of increase from the Fed. Other central banks are probably a little bit lower, but we have at least 550 basis points on the Fed side. So far, that hasn't quite yielded all of the success that was anticipated, but it actually supports the recent argument from a lot of analysts that it is likely that interest rates will remain higher for longer. We've heard that thrown around somewhat. If you really think about higher for longer, to be fair, interest rates started from near zero. So once you get into 3, 4, 5, that's still high, right? And until we start to see inflation start to adjust towards the targeted levels, it's likely that they will be keeping policy somewhat restrictive. Bank of Canada, they actually held interest rates last week, so did the ECB. And tomorrow and Thursday, the Fed and Bank of England is supposed to also make their announcement. We've seen slowing slowdown. China has shown signs of slowing. Germany too. Inflation in Germany, I think, is now at a two-year low. Other Euro area countries are actually showing signs too. Now, if you look at the consumer side, because of the adjustments that we've seen so far, it's likely that some persons will start to decide how much they can borrow if they really do need to. Because if you look at even the housing market in the US, I think last week rates were up as high as 8%. I don't think we've seen those levels in quite some time. The banks have actually been forced to pass on the higher costs to their consumers.
They reach Jamaica levels. US and Jamaica running competition for interest rates now. It used to be way lower there.
Well, there you go. But once you start to have the benchmark adjusting, the banks will have to pass on, because what you have to do is you have to adjust on the borrowing side. If you adjust on the borrowing side, you also have to adjust on the lending side, right? Because banks really make money from spreads, right? Whether it be buying and selling or borrowing and lending, right? Now, one of the issues that came up maybe a couple of months ago is whether or not we're going to end up with a recession in the US. Now, I don't think the smartest guy in the room is going to take on that conversation right now, because it sounds as if almost that you're preaching doom and gloom, right?
That conversation has been happening since COVID.
Well, to be fair, we've had 300, 400, 500 basis points, and the market still is operating as if, it's somewhat normal, right? Now, to be fair, on the stock side, you'll find that people will gradually move away from that, because it's considered a little bit more riskier than investing in. You can talk about US Treasury bonds right now, which you can find north of 5% on US Treasury bonds, right? So to be prudent, you have to stay invested. I don't think anybody's going to take a platform and say, take your money, put it under your mattress. I think we're kind of gone past those days now, right? You really need to stay invested. Most importantly, however, you have to consider the type of risk that suits your portfolio. So if you're the less risky type of portfolio, you really want to stay on the shorter end of the curve and look for assets that have better quality. If you have more risk tolerance, then of course what you can do is look for longer dated assets that are deeper risk weighted discounts.
Andre, I wonder, did you hear? So you mentioned about the housing market and the interest rates being high. I don't know if you heard this bit of news that came out, I think late last week, that there was an announcement from the Biden administration of this proposal that they put forward for, what was it, down payment assistance to help first-time home buyers buy a house. They would be helping you to pay your down payment. Did you hear that bit of news? I
can't say that I've seen that directly.
Okay, it's very interesting development. Because interest rates are so high, the administration says they want to help first-time home buyers whose parents didn't own a home either. They want to help you by giving you some money to make the down payment, because that is one of the biggest hurdles to home ownership, coming up with that 10% or 20% down payment, that deposit.
Right. So remember too, that the policies of the Fed really is restrictive, right? And the consumer will feel it. I think one of the things that they're looking into as well is that for student loan borrowers. So back from the Trump era, there were some concessions regarding student loan. I believe now, I think it probably starts somewhere about November. So that's additional money that's going to have to come out of the hands of the average individual. We've seen where a lot of companies have already been laying off as well. And again, it comes back from the restrictive policies from the central banks. Because you see, it's not heavily talked about, but even on the domestic side, we've seen where there are cuts being made, but it's not well publicized.
Kish says interest rates are in the single digits. Years ago, it was double digits. Mortgage rates was at 14% in 2005. Why are people complaining about 7 or 8%? I remember around 2010, Audley Shaw clamoring for single-digit interest rates. That was the thing. His mission was to bring interest rates down to single digits because 15% Kish, was even higher than that at one point. All 20% mortgage rates, interest rates were really ridiculous. But we've gotten used to the single-digit rates now.
So
right,
somebody
Andre?
who owned a home from probably like 15, 20 years ago or longer than that will tell you that, you know, when you would have gone to NHT and gotten 5% interest rates, they were like, what? You know, because they know of double digits. But we've gotten accustomed to those relatively low interest rates for some time now. So it's a little bit difficult for us to adjust to it. But you know, if policies remain the same over time, you know, you'll find that the landscape may also have to adjust to that as well.
All right, let's bring David in. You wanted to comment before we move to your topic, David?
Sure. So one thing people need to also contextualize is other part of the equation is the cost of property has considerably gone up, you know, today versus, you know, early 2000s. So while rates might have been relatively quite high back in those days, in the same context, the monthly cost on that same property might not have been as high. So there is some nuance to the discussion, because if I'm looking at a $3 million property back in, let's say 2005 or 8, you know, it's probably 14%, the monthly payment on that is likely to be much lower, even over a longer tenure, probably 30 years.
But that's also relative too, David, because at that time the exchange rate was a lot lower. Same way, so 2010 exchange rate was about 70 to 1.
2013 was
70 and 80 to 1, and now it's 150 to 1. So all of that is relative. Even though the payments were lower, the currency was also worth more.
No, but that's just the point, Kalila. So when Kish was asking, you know, why persons are complaining now about rates being higher while some of them are still single digits, the context matters, because as we're highlighting, the cost that you have paid perpetually over these last probably 20 years in a sense versus paying today is drastically different. Because for one, the down payment is going to be a lot different, and in the same breath, you know, the reality is those monthly payments can increase, as some persons have come to realize now, because persons were steadily paying, for example, let us say 60 grand, you know, every month, and all of a sudden your bank increased your mortgage rates recently, and you're paying extra 20 grand per month. So even though interest are probably single digits in context, you know, an increase in the rate does have an impact on your pocket, because that's less money you can spend on other productive means.
Right.
For example, investing, for example, upskilling. Like the impact of higher rates might not show up for, you know, a person who's going to a bank and borrow a loan, but there are different ways that it will show up throughout the parts of the economy, because when one person doesn't spend, that's one person who didn't earn an income. So that's how I look at it. The less spending there is, less income that's going across the entire board.
Natisha says, I would take 7 to 8% now, but rates are nowhere near that. Call the banks tomorrow and you will be shocked. It's like 9-10% now.
Call Scotia.
Right. So it comes back to the point that I made earlier, that banks, financial institutions are in the business of borrowing, lending on spreads, right? So what you see is usually you know, a band. I cannot speak to exactly what those numbers are, but usually you have a base where, you know, the financial institutions are willing to borrow or buy, and another where they're willing to sell or lend, right? That's how they make business. That's how, you know, when we have these AGMs, you guys go there and you ask the questions, you know, why is it that the profit is down? It's because margins would have shrunk somewhat. Now, to go back to the original point, it's a little too soon to say that we are in a new paradigm, a new shift in terms of where rates are likely to be, because once you start to see inflation numbers adjust into to the direction of where central banks want them to be, there's a good chance that we may see some sort of easing coming into play. But as it stands now, this is the reality of what we're dealing with, and it's all that we can pretty much talk about.
All right, let's move on to our next topic, which is Carib Cement. This is one that dividend seekers have been keeping an eye on for 10 years. So their 9 months ended September 30, 2023 results are out. David, how did they do?
So for the third quarter in particular, we saw a 13% increase in revenue to $6.99 billion and a 60% jump in net profit to $1.92 billion. A large part in terms of that reduction would have come from, the decline in distribution expenses, the decline in financial expenses, since they don't have to be paying on the preference shares or any more debt. So we saw this significant, third quarter performance. And when you check the parent company, the ultimate parent company, which is Cemex, they actually, mentioned Jamaica in their reports, which is a very rare occurrence. So what does that mean? The Cemex highlighted that, Jamaica had positive volume performance. What does that mean? So we know last year, Carib Cement have increased cement prices by 15%. I'm not sure they increased prices since then, but the reality is if you sell more volume, even the price is the same, you're going to earn more money. That's just how it works. You can also have the case whereby you sell, less volume, but the prices are higher to compensate. In this case, it's not that situation. They're really selling more volume. And they also highlighted in the case of Cemex that, in case of Carib Cement, there is, tourism-related projects going on right now, which is a major driver of, their actual growth in demand as well, alongside, different infrastructure projects as well. And even recently, I believe it was in September, we shipped about, I think it was 3,500 metric tons of cement to Turks and Caicos. So you're seeing, Carib Cement really start to benefit from Jamaica's economic, growth. And in the same breath, they're no longer shackled by the neck under, the debt that kept them constrained for so long. Clear up debt, with Cemex, TCL, and even the banks. So now, we're seeing where Carib Cement is increasing their dividend payments, but on the flip side, the stock price, is not really reacting to these continuous improvements. Part of the equation, is with regards to the high interest environment and the fact that the market is down. But on the other hand, you do have a lot of shareholders who do hold resentment towards Cemex and the Carib Cement board, where the way they forced through that royalty back in December 2021. That still does not, blend with a lot of persons. But end of the day, companies growing, you're still seeing this economic activity in Jamaica, and end of the day, they're going to continue to benefit, from the increased number of rooms that are going to come on stream in the coming years. In the case of hotel rooms, we have the new housing developments like Bernard Lodge and other spaces, and the reality is they are somewhat protected, by regulations. So, for example, Cargo Handlers has a stake in Buying House Cement Limited. They're only allowed to import 120,000 tons of cement per year. That's capped. They can't import more, even if there's more demand in the market. And I remember, there was a company that got a cement license the other day. I think it was capped at probably around 10,000 tons per year, but that's just the reality. So Carib Cement has that space to grow, without the fear of imports, restricting their growth on the flip side. And we're also seeing, whereby into the end of 2024 and 2025, we're going to see them have 30% more capacity on their plant, which would actually feed further into them actually producing more cement, not just for the domestic market, but also for the export market. And this host of expansion we're seeing in manufacturing companies just translates back to the fact that Jamaica and in turn other business partners in the region do see the value in Jamaica. Because even with Cinco, they're spending 5 billion J, about 3.5 around that range million USD in just capital expansion. Sorry, apologies for that. About 30 million USD, not 3.5 million. But end of the day, we're seeing more manufacturing companies expand their capacity to just meet the growing demand in Jamaica.
So, David, you said some nice words about Carib Cement doing well, increasing profitability. Yay, good for them. But is it good for us? What are they saying about dividends? Are they planning to share any of this additional profits with shareholders?
They paid a dividend recently. That was back in October. They paid on October 6th. I don't remember the specific amount, 1.8976. It's an increase above 1.5032 last year. Most of that went to Cemex and TCL, which are the largest shareholders. And my persons who have been accumulating Carib Cement, some of the older folks from the 2000 days to now, the dividend might actually be larger than the actual price they paid for it. And for some persons, actually a 50% yield. So I know somebody who says their parents got them Carib Cement at like $2, I think, and they're not selling it because that's their pension stock. So imagine now almost a $2 dividend and an average price of $3.
Nice.
So the dividends are coming in steadily, or less annually. 2 divided by 50 is about around 4% yield, which isn't bad considering the other market payments as well. So it's not a bad trade-off.
Christopher has a question for you. I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but he wants to know what is Carib Cement's current PE ratio, and I guess he means the NAV.
I cannot tell you what the NAV is right now, but the good thing is I have a calculator and I can move very fast. I can move very fast to calculate
Most challenge quiz.
Well, I'm not creative kids, but all right. So 7.79 times for Carib Cement's price to earnings ratio, which is below the market. And the low PE kind of reflects back to just the negative sentiment that is around Carib Cement, because we've also seen where Mayberry Jamaican Equities Limited, which is one of the largest shareholders, continue to reduce its position in Carib Cement as well. Because back in 2021, it was trading as high as $120. And at the current price, that would have been a P price to earnings ratio of about 20 times. So this significantly reduced price to earnings ratio kind of reflects the negative sentiment around the company. So cap gains kind of limited right now, but the steady increase in dividend payments, which is something that TCL and Cemex wants, will further benefit all the remaining minority shareholders.
I'm going to take this last question from StrongLink, and this is for you guys who watch the market a lot more than I do. I only dabble. I only watch cursory. StrongLink says, did I really see the JSE main market jump over the last few days?
So the reality is end of month is a time for some persons to make money and for other persons to cut losses, but cut losses to a bare minimum. So what you tend to see is that at the end of the month, and especially at the end of the quarter and even end of financial year, you see particular stock prices tend to go up. And based on how our market actually functions, meaning based on the way the market cap is calculated, larger companies sometimes tend to see an increase in their price, and because they have strong disproportionate impact on the weight on the market, you tend to see that significant increase in turn as well. So you've seen the different securities on the market go considerably. So like yesterday, I got some PBS at $1.40, so at $1.5499 today. I had a couple of securities I sold today as well. Even I believe it was Separate from $71, $78, just from I started today, and you've seen other securities have that similar impact or event, and it's not necessarily the case whereby somebody has something in particular over you. In some instances, it's just a little bit of rebalancing, and that rebalancing in turn, requires higher prices because fund managers get paid based on the valuations of assets that they manage. So, and in the month, the best bid price and the sometimes the closing prices are going to be higher. But by tomorrow, you're going to see a downturn in some of these securities and enter in the market index. It's something you can track actually, you know, every month and backtrack the data and backtest it. So I hope that kind of makes some sense. And I would just say to, you know, go and check how stocks and other securities are measured, you know, by accounting purposes. It kind of can give you some insight, you know, as to what potential security you can actually look at to potentially take advantage of at end of month or particular periods to make money for you. Somebody in a group
Lithium was saying to myself, look like Jamaica got paid. Mountain, as you say, mundane activity. Well, thank you so much, David. Thank you as well, Andre. Appreciate you guys as usual. And we'll see you again very soon.
Thanks again, Kalila. Happy Halloween. And don't forget, AS Brad listening in 2 weeks. NCB FG EGM today. All resolutions approved. Bye, guys.
What's happening in 2 weeks?
AS Braden and Sons Holding Limited will be listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange by introduction. Its average date was published on the JSE yesterday. So within the next 14 days, which is 2 weeks, we're going to see AS Braden become the latest company to list on the main market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Its opening price is likely to be between $20 to $30.
Oh, that's a big company. That's a big one. So we got to pay more attention to that. We probably need to talk about it next week.
Well, you should probably talk to Katie Scott.
All right. Well, thank you once again. You always have the inside scoop. We appreciate it and appreciate you as well, Andre. We're going to take a quick break and come back with our closing remarks and final comments.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analyst, was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
And she's now established herself Jamaican Oprah.
You get a t-shirt! You get a t-shirt! You get a t-shirt! Everybody gets a t-shirt!
My name is Nicholas Samuels. I joined the Money Mission. I'm here at the Money Mission event tonight, which was absolutely awesome. The whole idea of joining Money Mission in the first place is to come and be a part of a like-minded community of everybody that wants to get some wealth, wants to do better financially, as well as to be in the one central place that has a lot of information about finances, right? One of the things that a lot of persons I know that don't benefit from is persons that are teaching financial education, as well as teaching how it is that you can make wealth and generate income from multiple sources as well. Typically, that's not something that you will find unless you go out and seek it. And what Kalila has done in creating a Money Mission community is absolutely awesome.
My name is Anita Bailey. The reason I joined the Money Mission is because during a very hard time in my life last year, I just completed my master's. I had quite a number of debt from that master's program, and Kalila came to my organization. We had a session where she introduced us to how to budget, how to manage our money, and also how to invest. And through the tools that she gave us on that day, the tools and the templates that she provided me, I was able to set up my budget, organize my life, all my income streams, what my credit card debts are like, and how to manage that. And I was able to get out of debt by March the following year. So I took approximately 5 months. And this was something I was struggling with for maybe about a year. And with Kalila's help through the Money Mission, I was able to get through that. And I would advise anyone, if you're starting a business, you're looking to invest, if you're having challenges with your money, you're not quite sure how to manage your money as you're starting into the working world, Kalila and the Money Mission is where you want to be. You want to sign up with our program because it is absolutely amazing.
You heard what she said. Check it out at moneymission.mn.co. Money marketing coming up on Monday, November 6th. Final comments from you guys. Strong Link says security is easily compromised with too much short-term Airbnbs. Francine says, I have no problem with Airbnb or seeing strange people on a regular basis. This is a form of income and persons should be able to earn an honest living to pay their mortgage, but regulation is important. We have Brother Adam says she's right. Long-term rent, short-term rent, both are commercial use as both are for profit. But then we have James who says, I will do what I want to do with my house, but we have to be mindful of who we're renting to. Foreigners on the mere rent. Really, James? Okay, that's a whole nother issue. I saw that issue developing on TikTok with this one lady who said she's not renting to no Jamaicans. So is that discrimination? Another question. Stronglink says we must not encourage the eater food culture, which adopts an indisciplined free-for-all behavior. We must have law and order for any business to thrive. And then Kish says tenants should be respectful. Totally agree, long-term or short-term. T876 says it's already out of hand. One thing we are sure to do as a people is make the little man versus big man story to justify a certain position instead of being objective about the issues. Lanesra says, how does an owner of an Airbnb prevent those issues that the short-term rentals have if you penalize on an individual basis? Great question. Pablo says, I hope Eddie is not suggesting that Airbnb give the Jamaica government fees at the expense of property owners. We have to see. Francine says, Lord, oil increase again. You know, that's one thing that I heard from Andre's presentation. He was like, did he say oil prices gone up again? Jeez, man. One Coco Investor says rates are 7 to 8% in Canada. I think the issue is that rates moving from 1.5 to 8% will see lots of people just being priced out of their homes underwater. And then Michelle, I forgot to ask you a question, Michelle. She had a great question. How will the recent earthquake affect homeowners insurance in Jamaica? What are your thoughts on that? Please don't give me another bill to worry about, Michelle. Oh my goodness, one thing after the other. Glad everyone is safe after this most recent earthquake. 5.6, they say. I don't want to know what 7 or 8 feel like. I absolutely do not want to know, because the house I was in, nice solid townhouse, felt like it was gonna collapse with me in it because I was upstairs. It was scary. So imagine what 7 or 8 on the Richter scale feels like. Imagine what Haiti went through in 2010. Do not want that around here. For those of you who are God-fearing, repent. You know, it is. Oh boy, that's going to do it for this episode of Taking Stock. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to like the video, subscribe to this YouTube channel, leave a comment, share with a friend, follow on all social medias. I'm at Kalila Ray. Any other page is a scam. Look out for the extra letters and the special characters. That is not me. I will never DM you asking you for money to invest in anything at all. I don't invest on behalf of other people. The only thing I run is the Money Mission community, and it's just a community of people. We don't do investments on behalf of others. So report those scammers whenever you see them. They are not me. Absolutely not. I do have a new broadcast channel on Instagram, which is pretty cool. I leave voice notes in there pretty much every day for those of you who are part of it. So if you go to my Instagram bio page, you will see the broadcast channel right there. I usually post it on my stories as well, so you can be a part of that. See you inside the Money Mission community, guys, and see you next week for money marketing, and then on Tuesday for Taking Stock. Let's get this money.
Let's get this money.